Welcome. It is time to explore a powerful book, a best-selling book that we here at Two Sisters Writing and Publishing just released for Pride 2025. It's called Pain Before the Rainbow, a biomythographical anthology by Jack Cooper. And I, Elizabeth Ann Atkins, co-founder of Two Sisters Writing and Publishing, am so proud to present to you Jack Cooper. Welcome, Jack.
Hello, thank you. Thank you very much.
So, this book is so powerful. I really want you to explain how it's so unique and begin by explaining the title, please.
Okay. Uh, Pain Before the Rainbow is describing a period of time before gay pride and the solidarity flag that was created in 1978. It's a time before we as a community, as an LGBT community, were allowed to come out and be who we were without persecution.
hmm Okay, wonderful. And the way you wrote it is so breathtakingly beautiful and poignant. It's very sad. However, it is a powerful inspiration for all of us to continue the hard work to make certain that all of the freedoms are maintained and protected. So, Jack, can you talk about what pain before the rainbow really meant? Because it's quite grim.
It's well, the basis of the book was a novella called Anthony's Sin, and it's essentially a love story that takes place before we were able to have a loving relationship, a same-sex relationship, as we were able to today. Back then, it had to be hidden. So, what I wrote about were the kinds of things and the experiences that I went through, my own personal journey of some of the pain that I had to experience and some of the losses, some of the deadly losses that took place because of the times that it was. And it was a
hmm
time before we were able to be who we were.
hmm
And the consequences were just horrible.
hmm
The book is an anthology, so it's essentially a biomythography. And let me explain what that is.
hmm
It's a genre that was created by poet and author Audre Lorde, which
hmm
enables us to use our experiences to write what identity means to us, and that we can use emotions along with imagery and perception to express our truths and still write a nonfiction book.
hmm
A biomythography allows me to fill in the blanks of my memory and still write a nonfiction piece. And I have to fill in the blanks of my memory because the experiences I'm writing about takes place in the mid 70s, which was
hmm
about the time the Vietnam War was ending.
hmm
So it's a storytelling of pain and healing and survival.
hmm
It's imagery that becomes true when I'm telling about it. It's kind of writing down who we are and what we are based on the emotions that we experienced in life. And
hmm
that's essentially what I wrote about, those
hmm
emotions and how I experienced them. So it
hmm
kind of represents my perception of the truth.
Yes, beautifully said. So, as your publisher and also editor, I was just swept away by the way you conveyed all that you just described because your writing is just beautiful. You are an award-winning writer. You've been published in many places. And so, why, Jack, did you write this particular book?
Well, it was a personal journey of healing. Because of the pain that I carried inside me that just wouldn't leave me be, it was because of grief that I couldn't process. I wrote it because of the emotional isolation that had done its damage over the years. And now, and only now, that I feel it was time to release it. So I was ready. And writing was the only way I knew how to release it. That's why I wrote the book. I had to get it out of my system, and I allowed it like poison just to eat away at me for years. And it was time. And the more I wrote about it, especially early on, bits and pieces, the better I started feeling about it. So it was more therapy for me than anything else. I didn't
Beautiful.
expect it to be put out there. Let me put it that way.
Well, you are one of the contest winners in our short stories contest that we used to have here at Two Sisters Writing and Publishing, and that's how we connected.
Hmm.
And your writing, you're just so very, very talented. So in addition to Anthony's Sin, which is the centerpiece of the book, you also have short stories that explore um, other Pain Before the Rainbow themes.
Yes.
And those are very powerful, including involving teenagers and the cowboy. And
Hmm.
it's just really, really great. So everybody out there, please order this book. The ebook became a bestseller on Amazon. It's Pain Before the Rainbow by Jack Cooper, and you can find it at Amazon, Barnes& and Noble, twosisterswriting.com, and anywhere you buy books online. It is so powerful. You will love it because it really, really makes you think about contemporary times. And so you've described why you wrote it, what the book is about. Can you talk about the response that you're getting from readers?
Yes, well, so far the response has been pretty positive. I mean, many of the comments were about how I was able to keep my experience isolated all these years, which I was actually really good at doing. And I'm not sure it was entirely healthy to do that, but I didn't have much choice in the matter. Not that the way things were back in the 70s and 80s, I didn't have much choice. I had to keep these things isolated, so I did. Some of the feedback was that readers had no idea what it was like for young gay people back then. They didn't realize how social and religious norms were victimizing young gay kids. Many expressed that, although aware of church abuses, they didn't know how especially vulnerable, confused the gay kids were. And many appreciated the stories for the hope they may provide for those still struggling. Overall, the response has been encouraging.
Excellent, excellent. So I love one of the things you just mentioned about how young people don't know what it was like just a few decades ago, like the 70s and 80s for gay people, because now we see pride and we see same-sex marriage is legal and all these other things. So that's one thing that I really love about your book, Jack, is that it gives people a perspective to understand not too long ago, people were literally getting killed for being gay, not
Yeah,
to mention,
I'm sorry. It's the LGBT community is backsliding as the false narrative of a purity culture again becomes the vanguard of political and religious leaders. But as long as organizations like the Trevor Project are necessary, then we aren't quite there yet, are we? We still aren't quite safe from our own hands. The Trevor Project works to prevent young gay suicides. And sharing my personal accounts, including the losses of loved ones and friends, I'm trying to highlight the importance of memory and storytelling amid the sorrow of loss that occurred. Have times gotten better? Yes, but we're not there yet. We're not there yet. And I want
Mhm.
my book to be a collection of stories that wakes people up to what life was like before the rainbow, so that we don't return to those painful, deadly times. I want my
No.
book to highlight the fight still needed to prevent gay suicides, especially
Mhm.
among the young, the Christian, and those in the Bible Belt. And I want my book to help me diminish the bitterness I feel about those who perished because of the so-called purity culture, those I knew and those I didn't know, all of those who didn't make the journey, all of those who are forgotten, all of those who may be remembered for who they were expected to be and not for who they truly were. I'm sorry to sound so bitter still, but it was a time before the rainbow, a painful, deadly time.
Oh my gosh, I have chills and I want to cry. It's
Well,
horrible. It's still a major problem. Like the suicide rate for trans teens is horrific. And, even just people who aren't trans and are grappling with their identity, that's oftentimes leads to taking one's life. So it's very sad.
it
So
is bad, and it's ongoing. I mean, it's gotten better, yes, but it's ongoing, and that's really what the fight should be about.
yes. Oh, I'm so with you on that. And that's why we're so very proud to publish your book, Jack.
Thank
So
you.
very proud. You're welcome. You're welcome. And you just gave an overview of what you hope to achieve, and that's our mission as well. So we share that. And to do that, you are having a very robust schedule of activities and presentations and such. Can you tell us about some of your upcoming events?
Yeah, I'll give you the first few that are coming up. There's in the capital region of New York State, there's a town called Bethlehem. They're having a Bethlehem Pride Festival on June 21st, which I'll be attending.
Hmm.
And then there's an LGBTQ member who owns a place called June Farms. It's kind of a festival event, and it's a Pride Festival on June 25th, which I'll be attending. In Utica, New York, the public library has me coming in on July 9th to do an author talk about the book.
Nice.
So those are the kinds of things that I've got coming up immediately.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a pride time. It's a month of pride. And it's important that this stuff happens this month because, honestly, the wonder is not that so many of us perished by our own hand, but that so many of us survived at all. So it's important for it to happen this month. This was a time when the soul's endless yearnings for people like us had to be kept secret. The damage done then just cannot be undone. So we have to get the message out there. Now, I can't conceive of anyone at a young age during a time before the rainbow who was not irreparably scarred, knowing the conditions of this life.
Wow, Jack. So, especially in Anthony's Sin, you talk about religion and how it's perpetrated through families and in the church, the Catholic Church specifically,
Yes, yes,
and how damaging it is.
yes.
And
It
it, mhm.
it's It's about the Christian or Catholic experience inflicting deadly damage on those who wouldn't or couldn't conform to the expectations of the so-called good book. Youngsters who may have been confused about their sexuality were victims of religious leaders. And it's not unique to young gay kids who are confused. It's more broad than that. And these stories are my journey through the shadows of gay suicide. And it's a tribute to lives marked by struggle. It's a tribute to those who didn't make the journey with me, gone by their own hand. It's sad. My book is about those struggles that I and other gay youngsters experienced before the rainbow and the gay pride movement. These are personal stories. My story is about those who were once in my life, who by their own hand are no longer with me. So, yes, I sometimes get bitter when I think about it. When it becomes the forefront of my mind, I get upset. It's about the harsh realities of loneliness, shame, oppression caused by social and religious purity culture that existed during a time before the rainbow.
Oh my goodness. Jack, do you find that writing is therapeutic and healing for you?
It is for me. And I'm able to talk about these kinds of things now when in the past I couldn't. So when I started writing, even just bits and pieces or thoughts about what had taken place, I started feeling better, so to speak. I started healing. The book addresses themes of loss, love, the human spirit. It's a compelling read for anyone interested in life before the rainbow and gay pride. My book is more than a reflection on death. These are stories of survival and mourning and healing. It's a
Hmm.
compelling read for anyone seeking to understand the gay experience before the rainbow through the lens of loss, legacy, and eventually healing. So, yes, healing was my objective when I started writing about those experiences at that time.
Excellent, excellent. You just made an excellent point that this book is for LGBTQ plus people, of course, but it's also for the mainstream to have a better understanding of where we've been and how
Hmm.
we need to move forward and never go back to that space. Is that
Yes, but
correct?
yes, it is. But more importantly, when we write books like this with an LGBTQ theme, the masses who are not associated with the LGBTQ community don't typically pick this book up. And
Mm,
and they really should because this is material, this is information that has to get out there to make it better for everyone, including non-LGBTQ community members. I mean,
mm-hmm,
they're not typically ones to pick up a book that has anything to do with gay pride or the rainbow or anything associated with our community. So, and I'm not sure how to get it out there to these people without
mm,
offending anybody, but it is important that it gets out there. The message has to be spread where we
mm-hmm.
once were so we don't go back to those deadly times.
Right. I think that's where the power of allies steps in because, as you know, we published a book called Joyously Free: Stories and Tips to Live Your Truth as LGBTQ plus people, parents, and allies, which I co-authored with our superstar best-selling author, Joni Lindenmeyer. And that book is all about LGBTQ plus people, but also allies and parents. So when you can get this book into the hands of allies, and then they can share with their peers who might not be gay or know anybody who's LGBTQ plus, then that can help create the groundswell of understanding, acceptance, and determination to maintain the freedoms, sustain the freedoms, and protect going forward. Do you
And
agree?
what better time to do it than the month of June, the month
Yes.
of pride,
Yes.
and gay solidarity that just didn't exist decades ago.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I really think that Pride should be celebrated 12 months out of the year, just like Black History Month should not be relegated to 1 month.
I
I think
agree.
it should be interwoven to our culture and all that we do all the time on every level. And so that's why we publish books like we do, and we publish your book, Jack, because it's really, really, there's no more powerful way to imprint somebody's mind and heart and soul than when they read a book. It's very intimate when you read stories, and your stories are so excruciating.
Thank
And
you.
yet the for me, the pain transformed into determination to do more. And I think that's what we do as advocates, as allies here, as publishers to get the word out. So as you go to all of your events, what do you say when you speak to people?
I make it clear to them that LGBTQ people have love stories, emotional bonds that exist similar to those who are not gay. We have these experiences, we have these emotions, we are the same people. We just love same-sex individuals.
Hmm.
And those love stories are important because they're the same things we read about in books that are written about straight love stories. We are the same people. We just love who we love. And more importantly, as teenagers, I had a love story when it came to Anthony's sin. And when Anthony passed away by his own hand, I hate giving away too much detail in the book, but I had this intense love for him that just would not go away. It wouldn't dissipate, it wouldn't become indifferent. There was no place to put it. It just stayed with me. And that's the kind of pain that I know straight people experience when they lose a loved one. So they need to understand that we are them. We are them. And I try to communicate that when I talk to people about the book and the contents and the experience that we had, as gay young people back in the 70s and 80s.
That's so beautifully said. I love that. It's the saying, love is love. Love is
Correct.
love. The body parts don't matter. It's soul connection that is
Right.
love. It's so beautiful. And I have no ability to comprehend how anybody could disagree with that. Even though I know that's a valid, I mean, that's a prevalent attitude that people have. But to me, it's not valid, just like racism. I just can't wrap my head around not liking someone because of what they look like.
I agree. I agree
And
wholeheartedly.
so, from that position, that's why we're so passionately dedicated to your story. Um, so, sadly, recently, the Christian Baptist organization voted against same-sex marriage, and they want to petition the national leadership to make changes to make it not legal for same-sex marriage. So, if you could go to their convention where they did this vote, what would you say to them?
I would have to ask them why it becomes relevant to them whether we as LGBTQ plus community members marry. What effect does it have on them? What is the bearing to their belief system on what it is that we do? How does it affect them directly? If it has no bearing, and I'm confident they can say that it really has no bearing on them, then why be involved with the discussion at all? Why is it
Hmm.
important for them to say, no, you two can't marry, but you two can? It makes absolutely no sense. And their arguments for banning same-sex marriage just doesn't hold water. And I think for the most part, they understand that, but they're more politically motivated than they are motivated by their own religious beliefs.
Mm-hmm. So, Jack, what can all of us do to make certain that their beliefs do not get traction?
We have to remember that this country was built on some concepts that are lately being forgotten, like the separation of church and state. If you have religious beliefs, fine, practice them, but don't impose them on those who are thinking differently. If there's no harm being done, don't impose religious beliefs that are not they're not consensual with other people. I mean, it doesn't make any sense for you to impose your beliefs on someone else if they have no detrimental effect one way or the other. Let
Mm-hmm.
it be.
Mm-hmm.
Separation of church and state has not changed in this country. It's
Mm-hmm.
just being blurred, and that's the sad part.
Horrible, terrible. Because as you show in Anthony's Sin, religion is just vicious,
It
vicious.
can be vicious. It
Mm-hmm.
can be vicious,
Mm-hmm.
sad.
Yeah. Hmm. All right. So, do you intend to write anything else that's similar to this, Jack?
I do. I do. There are a number of things that I've experienced over the years that are worthy of writing down, and I need to write them down to get them out of my head and heal.
Mm-hmm.
I just scraped the surface with this book, Pain Before the Rainbow, and
Mm-hmm.
there's more, and there's more, and I've
Mm-hmm.
got to write it down. And if it's worthy of putting out there in the public, then we'll assess that and possibly do that. But there is more. So Pain Before the Rainbow is probably not the end, but the beginning.
Oh, I love that. I can't wait to read more.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So, besides Anthony's Sin in the book, what other stories would you like to tell people about that they'll love in your?
There are stories about students that they're just sad to tell, but they have to be told because they're true. And, students are victims and sometimes of their own thinking, which could be deadly, but also victims because of the thinking of others who just may not understand or not see what a child is going through. There are things that are kind of glossed over that are painful and deadly and detrimental to the emotional health of kids that has to be told. And in this book, there are several of those stories that are being told because it's important that people see, not necessarily because they're LGBTQ related, but because they're painful experiences that kids go through that adults and adults who have authority just don't see. They don't understand. They're not looking deeply enough. And those messages, those stories have to get out there because things have to change. We
Mm.
rely on adults as figures of authority to make decisions in our best interest, and sometimes they're misplaced, and they don't know that they're misplaced, and they don't know the damage that's being done to kids, so they have to see these stories for that reason alone.
Mm. Wow, that's powerful. So, Jack, if you have any advice for people out there who have stories, do you recommend that they write them down, that they publish them, that
I
they
do
find
recommend
healing?
that they write them down, and I'll tell you why. The healing alone will
Mm.
benefit them, even if it's just them alone. And if
Mm.
they write these stories down and they're worth sharing, then they're going to help others too. So it's not just their own healing that they're going to experience. It's the kind of thing that is going to help a general population. They need to hear, they need to see, and these things aren't readily available to most people. So if you
Hmm.
write them down and you get them out there, it helps not only them, but it helps a whole lot of other people. And there are
Hmm.
people who are looking for the kinds of messages that we're trying to share. They're looking for the kind of help. They want to make sure they're not alone. They want to make sure that there's somebody out there who has their back. And that's what some of the writing does. It lets them know that they're not alone. We have their back and we understand what they're going through.
Mm, beautiful, beautiful. And so, for all of you people, writers out there or aspiring authors, you don't have to publish this as a book when you write your story. You can start a blog, you can do social media postings, you can even start a podcast and talk about your stories. There's many, many ways to share your stories, but with each story that you do share, you are touching someone's heart and soul. You are inspiring them. You are showing them that you had the power to push through and survive and make a difference, and they can do the same. So there's so much power in writing. And Jack, have you experienced that where people say, wow, I read this and now I feel so much stronger?
Yes, yes. And the reason I can say that for sure is that I do a lot of reading. I read a lot of authors and a lot of books. And I understand that there is information in books that I need to be made aware of. And if I need to be made aware of some of the messages that are in some of these books, then I'm not alone. There's a lot of people who need to be made aware of the kinds of messages that people write about. And that's what books are all about,
Mhm.
communicating information that we need to hear, we need to see, we need to experience. And my book, as well as so many other books that are out there, have information, have the kinds of experiences that need to be shared for people who may not be aware of what really
Mm.
goes on out there.
Mhm. Mhm. Wonderful, wonderful. So, Jack, any last words that you'd like to share with people who are watching or listening about why they should read Pain Before the Rainbow?
Pain Before the Rainbow is a book that will explain why so many people are out of our lives by their own hand. And it most people aren't aware of why people have passed on by their own hand. They assume, they make assumptions, they may not understand, they may gloss over it. But there are real deep reasons why kids are gone, and they're gone because of their own decisions. They're gone by their own hand, and we don't understand why. We just don't think that there is something deeper, that they were struggling with something that we didn't either understand or were perceptive of. These are messages that have to get out there because the more we lose, especially when it comes to kids, the more kids we lose by their own hand, are we really understanding why? And if we don't understand why, how do we stop it? How do we step in? How do we intervene? How do we help them? We need to know there's something deeper. We need to know that we're not seeing everything. It may be surface that you're seeing, but you're not looking deep enough. We have to save these kids. These kids are dying for the wrong reason.
Mm, powerful. And your book could save lives.
I hope so.
Yeah, absolutely. Jack Cooper, you are an amazing writer. You are now a best-selling author with Pain Before the Rainbow. Congratulations.
Thank you so
And
much.
you're welcome. And that's something to celebrate, but it's also something that underscores the goal that you have. The more books that get into people's hands and hearts, the better we can sustain all of the LGBTQ plus freedoms that have been gained in recent decades and keep pushing forward. So I want to thank you for the honor of publishing your book here at Two Sisters Writing and Publishing. And anybody who's watching and listening, please read this book. Please buy a copy for someone you know, especially if they're not LGBTQ plus, so they can have a better understanding and sensitivity about the realities. So, Jack, congratulations,
Thank you.
and you're so welcome. I'm so honored. And everybody, please get this book at twosisterswriting.com or anywhere books are sold online as an ebook and paperback. Meanwhile, Jack, where can people connect with you?
They can connect with me at jackcooperauthor@gmail.com.
Excellent, excellent. And also, everybody, all the events that he listed, please, if you're in the New York area, please do go and hear Jack speak, buy his book, get it autographed, which is extra special, and talk
Definitely.
with him about all the things he just shared with us.
Thank you
Thank
so much, Elizabeth.
You're welcome, Jack. I wish you happy writing, and I know that your book is making the world a better place.
Thanks
Thank
so
you.
much. All righty.
You're welcome.
Bye bye.
Bye.